modern HVAC companies, do they have to have at least a working knowledge of building performance and some of the instrumentation to measure these zonal differences in pressure and inside outside differences in pressure? Is that required in a modern company?
Well, let's put it like this. Um, if you are an HVAC company and you're doing any kind of installs or even change outs or doing anything that you need to pull a permit and you need a load calculation, we
Mm-hmm.
can do default numbers all day long, but in order to get the most accurate one, having a infiltration number from a blower door test is huge. Because we could do a whole thing on this, but even having that, you put dumb data into a software, you're going to get dumb data out. But in the flavor of being accurate, having an infiltration number is huge. That could throw your load calc off 3/4 of a ton either direction if you don't get your infiltration numbers correctly. And if you are doing any kind of comfort consulting and you've got a house where you've installed a system and that thing is purring like a kitten, you commissioned it with Measure Quick, you've measured all your airflow with TEC flow grids, and you did your manual JD and S and T, and that thing is just purring like a kitten, and the customer's not happy. They're uncomfortable, and they're blaming you. If you're able to go in and do some basic pressure mapping and zonal pressures and see, because there's a good chance that your HVAC is spot on, but the house ain't working. And so
Mm-hmm.
that could get you out of a lot of trouble. And you can be the hero. You can go to zero to hero and nothing flat by being able to take some good solid measurements, do some good building diagnostics, present that data and say, hey, here's what I found. And it could be infiltration. It could be, little or no insulation in specific rooms or in some spots, or it could be windows are leaking. We could have air coming up from a crawl space. It could be a whole host of things that you would be able to discover by doing some pressure diagnostics. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, and I can expound on that. Having done load calculations since, having done manual J and manual N since 1999, when I got my H3 license here in North Carolina, 75% of that time, or let's be honest, 90% of that time, we used rules of thumb. Remember how we talked about rules of thumb and how great they are? Rules of thumb, not for per ton. That's a lower level rule of thumb. 400. That's the beginning rule of thumb. But I'm talking about infiltration rules of thumb. It says, and I remember this. The form says, how many fireplaces do they have? Add X amount. How describe the, and it's such loose terminology. It's like, is this house loose, medium, or tight?
Right.
Okay, that's going to tell us a lot. And I'm going to look at it and say, this house was built in 1931, loose. And I don't
Loosey
know. I'm
goosey.
assuming, yeah. And then a modern house, hey, that's new. It's tight. You're right. Okay.
Semi-tight, right.
But, and there was no way of really knowing just doing that. The blower door is the only way to quantify that number. And once I kind of learned more about it, I was like, well, these numbers are never going to be right until they test the infiltration exactly. I mean, there might be a giant hole somewhere you don't know about that's getting 15, 20 CFM. And when it's 90 degrees outside, you're adding half a ton of load here with the latent load, because North Carolina, the temperature is often the relative humidity number as well. It's super comfortable during the summertime. 90 and 90. I don't even know how that's even possible, how that much water can be in the air, but it feels like you're swimming to your car. So that's a lot of just enormous load. Even the smallest amount gets into your house, or your kid leaves the bath fan on all day, or the dryer gets run all day, and stuff like that. But I totally see where you're coming from, and I can speak as someone who's ignorant for so many years. There's no way to know unless you have that stuff. So to me, that says if I'm going to do this professionally, I got to have that stuff or hire a guy who does that stuff as part of my initial assessment.
I get a kick out of guys that they're putting their best foot forward. They're trying to do what's right, and They use like a cool calc, right? And so that, and a lot of municipalities, if you can do a block load, that's all they want. They just want to see a block load.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll do a block load and they'll use default numbers and they'll go right from the manual J block load to a manual D duct design. I'm like, whoa. You skipped a step there because you can't do a manual D until you do a manual S, right? You can't design duct till you have your equipment selected, right? And then you got to design your duct work to your sensible heat ratio, depending on where you're at. It's like you totally missed a step, and then they won't do manual T at all. They just discount it or don't even know what that's about. And so you got to do a manual J, S, D, and T. You got to do all four of those, and then you could go deeper if you want, but that's kind of with a blower door, so you have at least an infiltration number.